Hey Pokemon Masters, Birdkeeper Toby here, and last week I got to play Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu for the first time ever at the Pokemon headquarters. I did a video talking about what my experience was like, and I showed off the gameplay. So if you haven't seen these two videos, I recommend them. They are both linked in the description. And yes, you're going to get some first-hand information of what Let's Go was like. But between the gameplay and the trailers that have been coming out, there have been little bits that I feel like people haven't been talking about. Maybe because these aren't considered like the true, Gen 8 games. And that's fine, Gen 8 is next year, but these are main series games, and there's actually some cool little hints to things that have been littered around that maybe you haven't picked up on yet. Of course, this is a video with Let's Go in the title, so if you leave a like and you leave a comment on this video, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna be giving away a copy of the game when the games come out, and your like and comment, it acts as an entry towards that giveaway. But hey, try not to just comment like, hey, this is my comment. Try and comment something about these Easter eggs and references. Some of them are small, some of them are big, but I love engaging in discussion with you. So, number one, you may have seen it in screenshots, posters, or in the gameplay. When you start up the game, when you load up the game, you're in your room, and in front of you is the Nintendo Switch. That is nothing new. Pokemon games typically have the latest consoles in front of the TVs, but what you do find is on the back wall of the room is a poster depicting a Nidorino battling a Gengar. And of course, any of you long-term Pokemon fans will know that this is the battle that started Pokemon. It's in the intros to Red and Blue, as well as Fire Red and Leaf Green, as well as a version of that battle happening in the TV show. Can't remember whether Nidorino was in it or whether it was Onix in it. Or actually, no, they swapped out Gengar for Onix? Either way, Nidorino versus Gengar is the battle of all battles. It is the original, and this is the homage to that. Number two, I first noticed it on my gameplay run through. On the wall right next to the Nidorino and Gengar poster is another poster, or I think it's actually a calendar. On it, you'll notice a little sprite that looks kind of like a Rhydon. This was the menu sprite that looked like Rhydon that represented all monster Pokemon in Generation 1. And I think Generation 2 as well. Any Pokemon that took this rough form, because back then there weren't sprites for every individual Pokemon. 20 years ago, are you mad? This sprite represented everything from Rhydon to even Rattata. Number three, another small little Easter egg is I've noticed in the trailers of Vermilion City, when you're outside the gym, there is a red and a blue bin, and when you're inside the gym, there is also a red and a blue bin. Now, this is a nod to two things. Number one is the very difficult bin challenge that was from Generation 1. In order to get to Lieutenant Surge's room, you had to check every single bin, and once you found one that had a button in it, you could hit the switch and the first barrier would go down. Then a second button would appear in a bin either to either side or above and below that bin, so then you had a 1 in 4 chance of getting the right button after that. However, if you messed up that chances, then the buttons moved to different bins and the whole thing reset. It was actually a very annoying puzzle and almost guaranteed that you'd end up facing all of the gym trainers. It was a tough time. But the bins aren't just a nod to that. In fact, I don't know whether it's just telling you if these are the correct bins or if you're gonna have to work out the order red and blue. But the red and blue is of course a reference to Pokemon Red and Blue, the Generation 1 games in the West that of course these games have been inspired by, as well as Pokemon Yellow. Number four, things that I thought were worth mentioning when I looked through my gameplay is when you were in the Pewter City Museum, you see the old Amber, you see posters of Aerodactyl, there is a recreation of Aerodactyl, there are bones of Aerodactyl. I mean, they might as well have a big old sign that says, hey, this is where you come to get Aerodactyl. But there is also an NPC who you can talk to who said that they can't believe that people have revived Aerodactyl, and they thought they would never see a dragon. And this is kind of funny because it's wrong. Aerodactyl is not a dragon. Aerodactyl is rock and flying. Its evolution is dark and rock. Wow, why don't I know this? Wow, I can't believe I just had to look that up. It's rock and flying. So not a dragon type, but it is used traditionally in the Generation 1 and 2 games by the Elite Four member, Lance. That character known as being a master of the dragon Pokemon, but because there's not many dragon Pokemon in Gen 1, he had to make do with Pokemon like Gyarados and Aerodactyl and Charizard. Now, interestingly, in this version of the game, there isn't just Dragonite, there is also a Alolan Executor, but we don't actually know if Lance is going to appear, but perhaps this is a reference to that. Talking about recurring characters, number five, something I've picked up on before, the girl who lives in the house of your rival, Trace, is no longer Daisy Oak. Instead, she's just referred to as your friend's big sister, and this is probably putting a distinction between her and Daisy Oak. That's because there's a difference between Trace and Blue. Blue, of course, being the rival from the Generation 1 games that these games are based off of. But if that is the case, that makes me think, could we see Blue in these games? What about Red? You're not Red. You're clearly different characters, but then it would seem to happen at the same time, or does it? Timelines have always been all over the place with remakes. Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald is said to happen at around the same time as Red, Blue, and Yellow, but Oras is said to happen around the same time as X and Y. I'm looking at you, Wally. Why don't you age? So who knows? But something could hint to this is number 6, the Game Corner poster. Now we see our Rocket Grunt standing in front of a poster, and that makes sense because in the Generation 1 games, Rocket's hideout is below there, and that's how you you access the Team Rocket's hideout and get the Silph Scope. But what you'll notice is next to the poster he's standing in front of, there is another poster that has already been ripped down. If these games do exist in some canonical timeline with the original games, which I don't suppose for a second they actually do, but if they do, could this mean that that's where the original poster was and now Team Rocket is guarding this new poster? I don't know. It could tie in because number 7, we are no longer actually in the game corner, but rather the arcade corner. We don't actually know if that is the difference, but as you can tell, the interior of the building is now an arcade, not a game corner. And the reason is that it's not a game corner is because the game corner was a lot more like a casino, which is of course where you gamble, and that is not overly kid-friendly. You'll actually notice past a certain point, the game corner has been completely eliminated from the Pokemon games, only appearing in the Virtual Console re-releases. So an arcade is a pretty safe substitute. Oh, and speaking of Team Rocket, by the way, number 7, Team Rocket appear in Viridian City. This is something I discovered in the gameplay, and they act as kind of like a roadblock for you. And it makes sense that they're in Viridian City because that is where Giovanni's main base of operations, Viridian City Gym, that's where that's at. But specifically, Jesse, James, and Meowth are acting as a roadblock in the gameplay. Now that makes sense for a similar reason to the last Easter egg, which is that they are replacing the sleeping man who was previously in Viridian City, blocking your way until you'd done Oak's parcel. Because in Japan, he was not a sleeping man, he was a drunk man. He was hungover, and that's why he couldn't move. And of course, they have removed that from the game as well, because that is not kid-friendly. Oh, and call it a little 7A, have a little look at the poster that the Team Rocket grunt is standing in front of at the moment. There are 2 things on that poster worth noting. There is a picture of a rocket, Team Rocket obviously, and in the top left-hand corner there's a rainbow. Rainbow rocket, anyone? Number 8, and this is one of the coolest things, organic moving Pokemon. When we were sitting there in the Pokemon offices playing Let's Go, the staff were kind of encouraging us to approach Pokemon in different ways. And this is because Pokemon will either attack you or try and run away from you. Each Pokemon, based on the way you would expect it to behave, does different things. Butterfree, being a very shy Pokemon, tends to fly away from you. Caterpie and Weedle, not having much direction, tend to just sort of bob around in any old direction. And Pokemon like Abra, if they see you coming, they won't actually teleport away from you, so you have to approach them from behind. Sneak up on them, which I can imagine is going to make shiny hunting for Abra an absolute nightmare. Number 9 is the version exclusives. Now this is actually something I've got wrong in past videos, so apologies. Because I've been saying that Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee's version exclusive Pokemon are the exact same as Pokemon Red and Blue's, and that is only half true. It's true that Let's Go Pikachu has the Oddish line, and Let's Go Eevee has the Bellsprout and Vulpix line. And that lines up really nicely with Pokemon Red being Pikachu and Pokemon Blue being Eevee. But the Sandshrew line, that was previously a version exclusive to Pokemon Blue, is actually in Let's Go Pikachu. So it seems it's still focusing on the same Pokemon, but they've actually been mixed around a little bit here. So thus far, we don't actually know what all the version exclusives are. Number 10, of course, is the compatibility with Pokemon Go. Now this isn't really an Easter egg, only one thing I'm about to say is a little Easter egg, but I do want to mention that I think it's highly underestimated how cool that feature is going to be. Imagine starting a game in which you've caught a Pokemon in your own back garden or at the front of your house or in your local park. You've caught a Pokemon, transferred it to a completed copy of the game, and then traded that Pokemon to a new game and started a new game with a Pokemon that you caught in the real world. That is awesome. You don't have to have completed the game, I don't think. I think you can get it from as soon as you're in Fuchsia City, but we don't know for sure. But the Easter egg that I do want to mention is, of course, in the online battles or in the multiplayer battles, there is something that looks very much like a Pokestop, just sitting behind your Pokemon, and that's just always interested me. Small little reference to Pokemon Go, perhaps. And number 11, I know we prefer our top 10 lists, but there are 11 things, and this one is just really cool. You'll have noticed that HMs have kind of been replaced with these secret techniques. There is one for cutting, there is one for flying, and there is one for surfing, and this time the secret techniques belong to your partner Pokemon specifically. And they're not really techniques of the Pokemon. Maybe cut is, but surfing, you just get out a surfboard, and flying, you get out a bunch of balloons. And this, of course, is a massive reference to the surfing and flying Pikachu. These have appeared on all sorts of promotional artworks for Pokemon. They've appeared in the card game as secret rares. There's also a Pikachu in the TV show that uses surf. In Pokemon Yellow, there is a Pokemon surfing minigame. Pikachu on a surfboard and Pikachu flying using balloons has been a mainstay of Pokemon for a long time, and now they're sort of canonizing it and also giving it to Eevee, which is really cool. Oh, and actually, before I go, there's been another Easter egg spotted, not by me, but instead by my friend and fellow YouTuber Hybrid Hero. He noticed in my gameplay footage these 6 Pokeballs in the top left-hand corner of Professor Oak's lab, and 6 Pokeballs, of course, makes up a team. Now, when you talk to the machine, it just says it's a mysterious machine filled with Pokeballs, but what if these Pokeballs are actually Professor Oak's team? In the original Pokemon Red and Blue, the myth goes that Professor Oak was supposed to be the final boss of the game with an incredibly strong team to be battled after you completed the Pokedex. In fact, Professor Oak's battle is still coded into the game. What if these 6 Pokemon are those 6 Pokemon, and what if at the end of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee you get to battle Professor Oak? I just thought it was a good spot from a friend of mine, and yeah, pretty interesting. Those are just some of the Easter eggs and references that I've picked up on that I thought were really small and really cool. Of course, you're gonna have to let me know your thoughts in the comments for your chance to win a copy of Let's Go when they come out. The Pokemon Company did go through and cut out any cutscenes and that kind of thing, anything that they really didn't want you to see, but for the most part there is lots of cool information there, so go check it out, please. Or you can check out the other video I made the day that I went to the Pokemon headquarters to play the game, and I talk about a whole bunch of new features. With that being said, soar high, Pokemon Masters. Head on down to the links in the description to join us over on Patreon for all the exclusive perks. A thank you to those people who make this channel possible. And a big thank you to the massive patrons this month, UmbreonLibris and N3rd For You. Thank you.